Welcome to our podcast channel. Today, we will be discussing the topic, how to build a mind so tough it scares people. We're immediately jumping into a deep dive today. Our mission is to dismantle this myth, that mental toughness and resilience are just things you're born with. We're searching for the the psychological blueprints that prove mental toughness is actually something you can cultivate, something you can actively build.
Yeah, it's a total shift in thinking, really. We're moving away from that fixed idea. Either you have resilience or you don't. And recent research, especially from fields that deal with extreme stress, like military science, it shows that certain kinds of pressure, well, if you manage them right, they don't just leave you unchanged. They can actually be a catalyst for real growth. We're literally looking at the architecture for building an indestructible mind.
Okay, let's unpack that. Starting with the hard science seems right. If we want to build a better mind, we need to see how it works under pressure. So let's talk about that 2012 study, the one with active duty soldiers. What did the MRI scans show about their brains after, what was it, an 18-month combat deployment?
Right, that research was really pivotal because it complicated the usual story of stress just causing damage. They scanned the soldiers before they deployed and then again after they came back. And what they saw was this kind of split in outcomes, a bifurcation. As you might expect, some soldiers did show the classic signs of trauma, reduced brain volume, developing PTSD symptoms.
Okay, that part makes sense. But the other group,
Yeah.
the ones who adapted well, you said they show the opposite. Wait, their brains grew?
Exactly.
That seems to completely challenge the idea that trauma only causes decay. Which parts of the brain were actually changing, getting bigger?
The main growth happened in the hippocampus. Now, this is a brain region that's absolutely critical for learning, memory, and really importantly here, for emotional regulation and controlling the stress response. It physically enlarged.
An enlarged hippocampus.
Yeah.
So in that high-stress situation, what does that mean? Does it just make them feel less fear?
Not necessarily less fear, but better regulation of it. Maybe even more fascinating, though, was the white matter tract. That's the connective tissue, linking the hippocampus to the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, the VMPFC.
Oh, okay.
That pathway physically strengthened.
The VMPFC, that's like the brain's CEO, right? The
Yeah.
hub for impulse control, rational thinking, managing fear signals.
Precisely. It's the highest regulatory center. So this neurological boost meant these resilient soldiers weren't just, coping emotionally. Their actual brain structure gave them more self-control, more discipline under fire. It's pretty definitive proof, really. The brain adapts to psychological stress, just like a muscle adapts to physical strain. You stress it just enough, break it down a bit, and it builds back stronger, more connected.
Right. And this idea using stress to force growth, it takes us straight to that concept of anti-fragility. Nassim Taleb's idea. This is more than just bouncing back, isn't it? It's like using the stressor itself as fuel. How does that framework apply if we think of the mind as a system?
It gives us a really useful lens. Taleb talks about 3 categories for systems facing stress or randomness. First, you've got fragile systems. They broke under stress. Simple. Second, robust systems. These resist stress, they hold up, they endure, but they don't fundamentally change because of it.
They just weather the storm.
Exactly. And then there's the goal, anti-fragile systems. These are the ones that actually benefit, they improve, they get stronger when they're hit with stressors, with disorder, with volatility.
Yeah, like the classic example, the Hydra from mythology, right? Cut off one head to grow back, or, more personally, lifting weights. Those micro tears in your muscles, they force the fibers to repair stronger. That adaptation is anti-fragility. And it explains why challenge is so important for the mind.
It absolutely does. The mind learns from failures, adapts to setbacks, it becomes more capable with each hurdle you overcome. But, and this is important, we need to circle back to that military study again. If the mind is inherently anti-fragile, why did they see that split, that bifurcation of outcomes? Why did some soldiers get stronger while others developed fragility PTSD?
Oh, that's the critical question. Because stress isn't always good, like lifting way too much weight before you're ready. It's a double-edged sword.
Precisely. So if we want the growth, not the breakdown, we have to figure out how to curate the pain, essentially. We need to be able to categorize the types of stress we face and make sure we're not just grinding ourselves down with friction that doesn't help us grow.
So how do we do that? How do we maximize the growth and, minimize the damage? We need a way to distinguish between different kinds of stress. Put pain on a spectrum.
Yeah, a spectrum is a good way to think about it. At one end, you have what we could call inconveniences. These are the minor, sort of meaningless annoyances, getting stuck in traffic, waiting in a long line, slow Wi-Fi. Research actually shows these tend to just eat up cognitive resources without giving you any real adaptive benefit. They just wear down your patience, make you more irritable.
So inconveniences are like low-level friction.
Yeah.
They drain your battery but don't make you stronger. They actually make you weaker over time.
That's a good way to put it. Stressors without real stakes, friction without adaptation. Okay, then at the far opposite end of the spectrum, you have trauma. This is stress that's so intense, so overwhelming, it just floods your system. It breaches the brain's coping capacity, that VMPFC control we talked about, and that leads directly to fragility. It's like trying to lift a car. The system just fails.
Okay, too little stress is bad, too much is bad.
Right. So our target is the middle ground, challenges. These are significant stressors. They're difficult, maybe even painful, but crucially, they're manageable, especially if you approach them with the right mindset, the right tools. These are the experiences that forge those new neural connections we talked about. They increase your mental capacity.
And the really interesting part here, isn't it, is that where something falls on that spectrum, it's not just about the event itself. It's mostly about your perspective.
Exactly. That's the leverage point. It's all about the reframing you apply. An inconvenience, for example, only shifts towards being a minor challenge if you give it some meaning. Think about, I don't know, doing the dishes. If you're doing it resentfully because someone nagged you, it stays a miserable inconvenience, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But if you choose to see it differently, like maybe you do it cheerfully as a way of caring for your home or your family, or even just checking off a small goal, you've reframed it. It becomes a minor but meaningful challenge. That reframing skill is absolutely essential if you want to consistently push stressors into that growth zone.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's move from the theory to how we actually do that. If reframing is so important, how do resilient people make that happen consistently? Let's look at that example you mentioned, the person who did that 15K military-style endurance race. They relied mostly on mental prep, not specialized physical training. What were those 5 mindsets they used to choose growth when things got tough?
Right. These 5 mindsets are really practical tools. They help you cultivate that self-trust and keep growing even when things get really hard. They're techniques for essentially self-regulation and engaging that VMPFC. Okay, number 1 is self-efficacy. And we need to be clear here, it's often confused with confidence. Confidence is more like a general belief in your talent. Self-efficacy, the way Bandura defined it, is more specific. It's the belief in your ability to actually do the specific things needed to handle a situation.
Ah, okay, so it's less I'm awesome and more I can figure out the steps needed to get through this.
Precisely. And to build this, the individual in the example didn't just try to silence their internal doubt, they actively removed their escape routes, like making a very public commitment to doing the race, telling everyone they knew. That basically eliminated the option of backing out quietly. The potential pain of public failure became greater than the physical pain of finishing.
Got it. Making retreat harder than moving forward. Smart.
What about other people? The social side.
That's number 2, social support and accountability. Facing something tough with a partner or even a team dramatically increases your chances of success. And it's not just, feeling better because someone's there, though, that helps. It's also about shared accountability. Knowing someone else is counting on you or just going through the same muck, it helps regulate your own stress and stops you from just deciding to quit on your own.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, number 3, enforced cheerfulness. That one always feels a bit counterintuitive. Forcing yourself to be happy when you're miserable. Huh. Yeah, it sounds odd. But it draws inspiration from people like Ernest Shackleton, the Antarctic explorer. He famously credited his crew's survival during that insane endurance expedition partly to deliberately maintaining a light attitude. Singing songs, telling jokes, making cheerfulness almost mandatory, even in the absolute worst conditions. It's not about pretending the pain isn't there. It's about actively engaging your body's relaxation response, the parasympathetic nervous system.
How does that work biologically?
Well, when you force a smile or sing or tell a joke, even if you don't feel like it, you can trigger positive feedback loops. It can genuinely shift your emotional state and boost endurance. It might involve the vagus nerve, helping to shift you out of pure panic mode, which actually improves pain tolerance and your ability to think clearly.
Okay, so forcing the positive state physically helps override the negative signals. That's fascinating. But what if the challenge just feels too massive? Like looking at that 15K race and just thinking, no way.
Yeah, that's number 4. Making success small. When you're facing something overwhelming, something that could break you or make you stronger, the worst thing is focusing on how far away the end is. The key is microfocus. You have to break the task down into the absolute smallest possible chunk of success. Focus only on the very next step, the next minute, the next lamppost, whatever it
That's
is.
the immediate next thing.
Exactly. This shifts the mental load away from the sheer impossibility of the whole thing and directs your brain's resources, that VMPFC control, towards something you can achieve right now. You're not running 15K, you're just running to that next tree.
Okay. And the last one, ultimate commitment. This sounds intense. The mindset that makes someone truly, as you said, terrifyingly tough.
It really is the core of what we might call indestructibility. It's the point where you decide you are genuinely at peace with the idea of, well, metaphorically, dying to achieve the goal. Now, obviously, for most challenges, it's not literal life or death, but the psychological shift is huge. When you eliminate quitting as a possibility, truly accept the worst-case scenario, even if that's just extreme discomfort or failure, you stop wasting mental energy negotiating with yourself.
You take quitting off the table entirely.
Completely. Your brain stops allocating resources to planning that exit route. You become almost impervious to the usual excuses, the smaller obstacles that derail most people, because your conviction is absolute. There's no other option but forward.
Wow. Okay, so let's pull this all together. We have the brain physically changing, strengthening connections through challenge, the neurological side. And then we have these 5 mindsets for navigating that challenge. What does this tell us about what real mental toughness actually is?
I think it tells us that true mental toughness isn't about already having all the skills you need for every possible problem. That's just being robust, resistant. Anti-fragile toughness, the kind that grows, is about building a personal history, a track record of enduring difficult things and proving to yourself over and over that you have the capacity to adapt, to figure things out. Every challenge you successfully navigate, using these kinds of mindsets, adds another piece of solid evidence to your internal portfolio of challenging stuff I've handled.
And that portfolio becomes the proof, the foundation for believing you can handle future unknowns.
Exactly. That's the ultimate form of resilience. It's the deep, unshakable trust you build in your own ability to figure things out when stuff gets hard, to handle setbacks, and just to keep going when it inevitably gets painful. That self-trust, built through experience, is what defines a truly resilient mind. And yeah, that quiet conviction, that's probably what scares people because it makes you seem unstoppable.
That's a really powerful takeaway. And it leaves us with the final thought, especially around that idea that perspective distinguishes trauma from challenge. If we know that controlled, manageable stress is needed for that neurological growth, how might actively choosing to engage with small, meaningful inconveniences today, maybe things like taking a cold shower or deliberately doing something uncomfortable for a short period, how might that change your automatic default reaction when a big, unexpected stressor hits you tomorrow? Something for you to think about. That's all for today's topic. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay updated with the latest news.